The resurrection of Jesus serves as the cornerstone of Christianity. Our faith either falls or lives on this fact. As the Apostle Paul notes, "For if Christ has not been risen, then our message is meaningless and your faith is also in vain." We were even exposed as being dishonest witnesses who were misrepresenting God because we claimed that He raised Christ, while in actuality the dead are not raised. Because if the dead are not risen, Christ won't either. And if Christ isn't raised, your faith is meaninless and you are still living in sin. Then those who have slept off in Christ are likewise lost. If the only hope we who follow Christ have is in this life, then we are the most miserable people and deserve to be pitied. So if Christ hasn't been raised, there is no Christianity and our faith is worthless. Well, we are blessed. The resurrection is the one miracle from history that has more evidence than any other miracle claim. Anthony Philip became a deist, but while still an atheist, he admitted, "The evidence for the resurrection is better than for claimed miracles in any other religion. It is outstandingly different in quality and quantity." Before we dive into the evidence, let's lay down some ground rules. Many skeptics assert that unless we have absolute proof the resurrection did not happen or that we cannot say it happened.
It's just dumb.
Science in general doesn't prove or disprove ideas. An article from Berkeley Education says, "The concept of proof in the world of science is not actually very scientific. Science is based on the idea that any idea or hypothesis could be put into question tomorrow if there was supporting evidence, no matter how widely accepted it is today. So science can accept or reject ideas based on evidence, but it doesn't prove or disprove them. If there is enough evidence to back the resurrection idea, then it should be accepted. So if science in general doesn't prove ideas, why are skeptics demanding absolute proof for the resurrection if we are to talk about it?" Critics tend to pull out what I call the subjective plugs when they say, "Oh, if you had this type of evidence, that would do it for me." Or, "If Jesus can come into my bedroom, then I'll go to church the next Sunday." Wait, you think I'm making this up? People don't say this kind of dumb stuff. In a public debate, this atheist was like,
"Giant figure with lightning playing around his Michelangeloid face," and he pointed down and saying, "Be assured, Keith M. Parsons, that I do in fact exist and I'm sick of your logic chopping." Dr. Craig, I would join you in the pew of the church, in the front pew of the church the next Sunday.
Mere skepticism and setting the bar so high will not challenge a historical case for the resurrection. If all the evidence points to the resurrection and someone doesn't think it is enough because they arbitrarily set a bar that cannot be reached, that will not, one, refute the overall case or offer a better explanation for the evidence, or even show the available evidence doesn't infer that the resurrection most likely happened. We don't need to be worried about this level of skepticism as we continue to argue for the resurrection. It doesn't refute the argument or even explain the available evidence. So how do we build a case, and what is the purpose of the resurrection argument? The purpose cannot be to demonstrate the resurrection is true in the sense that one can prove something is true through repeating an experiment. The resurrection is a historical occurrence that cannot be repeated. Therefore, the conclusion can only be drawn in the same way as one shows a historical claim is true or in a forensic investigation. As Avisa Tucker says, historiography doesn't reconstruct events. It cannot bring Caesar back to life or reenact the Battle of Actium. Historiography does attempt to provide a hypothetical description and analysis of some past events as the best explanation of present evidence. So one evaluates the evidence and infers the theory that can best explain the available fact. This is where we propose different theories to see which best fits the data. If a theory cannot explain the data, then it is thrown out as insufficient and not as probable to other theories that can best explain all the data. I also want to add that methodological neutrality is the best way to approach the resurrection, where the burden of proof rests with the person making the claim. If I claim that Jesus resurrected from the dead, I must show that this theory best accounts for the available evidence and other explanations are inappropriate. And this is like a double-edged sword. Muslims or atheists cannot just reply, "Laugh, you are dead wrong. Jesus did not rise from the dead." He or she would also have to refute my argument with a better explanation of the data and demonstrate why the resurrection explanation is insufficient. D.H. Fisher points out that the burden in history is always on the one making the claim. The burden is also on the one making a rebuttal or opposing claim. One can refrain from making any claim and be agnostic on the issue, but that personal conviction doesn't create an objective argument against someone who is making a historical claim, nor does it challenge or refute the presented argument. If they wish to do that, then they need to propose an opposing theory and back it up with evidence in a case for plausibility. In arguing for the resurrection, it helps create a better case if you have first addressed three things. These are not necessary in arguing the resurrection, but they do help in overall goal. Before making a case for resurrection and drawing conclusion that Christianity is true, one must first provide evidence that God exists in formal arguments. It is helpful if you have evidence of a general theistic creator, because combining the resurrection argument with those from natural theology strengthens the case for Christian theism. And since I haven't done this yet on the channel, why don't you subscribe and hold on tight? Second, it is beneficial to argue for the reliability of the New Testament. Now, when we go over the evidence, as I said in my earlier video, we are not assuming the New Testament is inspired or accurate in every detail, or even in most details. We will only argue from the facts that are backed by evidence and scholarship, but at least we should make a case that the documents are not entirely unreliable. And again, I haven't done this yet on the channel. Hold on tight. Third, we need to show miracles are not logically impossible events. If there is a God, then God can act in His creation. These actions are termed miracles. This is just a sketch of the whole argument, and I haven't done this in detail yet. Subscribe to the channel and hold on tight. As I said, these are not necessarily needed in arguing for the resurrection. They just make the case better. If Christians are making a claim Jesus rose from the dead, where is our evidence? And since I didn't want to make a 3-hour video talking about the resurrection, I spread them into episodes. Watch out the next episode in this series. And now, come hang out with me on social media.